second, it was about, I think it was my second, and it's all on video, great. And then you have his friend filming it and laughing.
I hate it.
All of us at the same time. He's texting you too? Should just make a group text. He said, now it's muted. I went, yes,
It's
but,
not, we're not.
oh, we're not muted?
Now we're not.
Okay, okay, you need to be promoted. Oh, okay, oh, not anymore. Okay. Okay, we were on the minutes, right? Okay, I'll just restart from there. Okay. The minutes, well, no, okay, so yes, see, okay, I'll just do it from the beginning. Xavier, can you hear us?
I can hear you. The camera's still not on. Just
Yeah,
as a,
we might have to go without the camera.
That's
If
fine.
it goes on, it goes on. Sorry, and I
No.
tried to look over this for you this evening.
no, it's all good. All good. Just flagging it for.
Send you a
Yeah.
picture of me, you know.
I miss
All right,
all of you so
Kind of
much.
late. The minutes,
Carry
all
on.
right, so we're gonna go back to the minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to the committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Before, Rosa had pointed out that there was a misspelling of a name. We will identify that and make that correction. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Okay, seeing no objections, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. The minutes of tonight's meeting are being taken by Jose Altamirano, our assistant. Okay, so we're gonna go into announcements. I have a couple, but does anyone have any that I figured, Rosa? Go ahead.
This Harlem Community Partnership, we have our annual, I think this is our 10th year that we're doing scholarships for kids that attend high school in East Harlem or live in East Harlem that are attending high school. They have to be seniors in high school. The information was already sent out. I know the board office has sent it out. We have sent it out, but if you have any questions, please, you can email info.ehcb@gmail.com. The deadline is May 3rd. And also, we're having White Playgrounds Conversation, Friday, May 1st, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Literally at White Playground in 170 East, 106th Street. Please come by 5:30 p.m. Everyone is welcome. June 13th, Marcus Garvey is holding a whole festival. And June 18th, also 10 to 1 p.m. both of them. Marcus Garvey is in 132nd Madison?
Madison.
Yes, so join us, thank you.
Okay, any other announcements from anyone else? Well, Xavier? you're right now.
Yes, we made the announcement of full board. We have our job fair on May 8th, 10 to 2 at Union Settlement, right there on 104th Street between 2nd and 3rd. And just remind people to come out. We would love some volunteers from the board, so please spread it amongst your networks. The flyer was in the newsletter last Friday, and we'll be promoting that gradually as we get to the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Xavier. Angel? Oh, sorry. Okay. Just a couple announcements from me. I just want to recognize the Earth Day event that the Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee hosted yesterday at the Museum of the City of New York. Rosa and the entire committee did an incredible job. I think it shows, what we're all capable of when we work together and really focus on something. And I look forward to other events like that from that committee, as well as our other committees. The other thing I wanted to share is I met with, don't hold me to the title, but I think the outreach person for Hunter University, I believe her name is Jennifer Tootin, and we met I think this past week. And Hunter College is looking at how to partner with the board, like what assistance they can be to us. And one of the things that I raised, and I'm open to hearing your suggestions as well before in advance of my meeting with the president of the university, which Jose and Angel will be doing with me, and I'll definitely see if any of you want to join as well. That they could kind of do a lot of the research that we need for our budget request, and some of the data we use, unfortunately, is outdated, and that's no fault of our own. That's just what it is. I think we both know, Nelson, that a lot of the supportive housing data is dated. I think Furman Center from NYU had done it way back. So they seem very interested, and like that was a good idea. And there were other things from there, and that Rosa.
I forgot, Hunter College CUNY is coming on Friday to Silverman at 5:30 p.m. to speak about environmental justice and issues in different community forums.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on, I guess. A lot of stuff was in my chair report. So presentations and discussions. We're gonna go into a traffic enforcement letter that you should all have. I'm gonna hand the meeting over to Derek, but as I talked about in our last meeting about chairs reaching out to their committee for ideas for agenda topics. I know a lot of you responded, and it's a new thing, so I'm just happy that we're all responding and talking about it. But Derek actually made a suggestion for this month's agenda, and we've added it. And so with that said, Derek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. So I was reading an article online highlighting that there are there are many stakeholders that are pushing to move parking enforcement from NYPD back to DOT. And I had come across two community boards that have taken a look at this and wanted to get the representatives to look at this. It's Manhattan Community Board 6 and the Brooklyn Community Board 6. And I was able to find the one you have in front of you is the Manhattan Community Board 6 resolution. At the time, I couldn't find the Brooklyn one, that it may be posted on their website now. And then I did read a little bit about the history of traffic enforcement in New York City. So for many years, the authority to do traffic enforcement was the Department of Transportation, DOT. They had enforcement officers. They wore brown uniforms, and they went around and took care of all of that. And then in 1996, it was part of a move by then Mayor Giuliani to combine it with the NYPD, and sort of that's the system that we've had now. for 30 years. And if you go through sort of the resolution, right, they talk about how sort of two things that the DOT is responsible for determining the roads and how they're used and all of that stuff. That they're probably the ones who should be enforcing whatever those rules are. And that, NYPD has enough things to deal with. And so if they were better focused on that part of enforcing the law, that they could do a better job as well. And there's data to show that, traffic enforcement has not been at the levels it was, especially since the pandemic, both in terms of parking issues, red light issues, like all the things that go with that. And there are some folks who would say that they're, maybe the traffic enforcement is uneven, right? Certain areas, certain locations, because of who's living there or what's located there, maybe near the precinct houses, for example, the enforcement isn't happening as it would in other parts, and then how that negatively impacts everybody, not just not only the people driving, but the people walking, right? People blocking crosswalks. And from my own experience, I call things into 311, and somehow the condition doesn't warrant any resolution, and I don't really understand how. So I thought this would be something good to talk about. I think that we could really learn more about it, what exactly it would mean to move parking enforcement to DOT. What does that mean about like moving cars, right? This resolution is speaking specifically about parking enforcement, but there would be that piece as well. And I thought this would be a good group to start the conversation with. And I'm sure, possibly if there were a vote, I'm sure it'd be to refer to committee, right? To have the Public Safety and Transportation Committee look at it. So there you go.
Thank you for the data part. I guess the only thing with the data is if they're studying, I guess, what was going on. Well, you said since the pandemic, right? So it's just declined within what they've done, right? Because there's really no way to it'd be hard to compare how it was being done pre-1996, right? Because there's so much less cars on the road and stuff. So, and then my only other question is, because we were talking about it before. So right now, I guess when a car has to get a ticket or be towed, right, you have the traffic police enforcement, but they're under the NYPD umbrella, right?
They're civilian uniforms.
Right. And so, yeah, they're the main ones, but then the NYPD, the actual police, are also oftentimes involved in this as well. So what my understanding is the civilian traffic police would then go over to the DOT's purview. And then the actual police, though, would not have to respond to this stuff anymore, basically freeing them up to not have to do that so they can focus on the other things. Right?
My understanding is this particular part would be about the parking enforcement piece. So there would still be, whether it's unmarked vehicles or marked vehicles that would drive around and would stop, cyclists or auto drivers that are, running red lights, not stopping at stop signs, like that. At least this version of it wouldn't be changed.
It's just like illegally parked cars.
Just the parking.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts? Jewel?
So this stems from what? DOT saying they want to do this, and now we're supporting what they've said?
So my understanding is it's not DOT. I don't believe it is DOT asking to take this back. I think it is community boards and city council people that are saying this would be better done if it was taken out of NYPD and moved back to DOT, so that NYPD could not have to worry about this stuff at all. Because like if you do a 311 complaint around parking, sometimes they send like uniformed officers. It's like that's not what they should not be going to look at a car, that's blocking a crosswalk. So those are the sort of the two parts of it. And I don't know what DOT's position on it, and I'm sure it's probably changed with the new administration. I could imagine they'd be more receptive to it, would be my guess, but I don't know if they have taken a position on wanting to take it back.
And what would be the additional cost in terms of that? And is there a unit within DOT that would be handling this?
My understanding is that it would be transferring over that part of NYPD to them.
Yeah, well,
Not that it would be another thing doing it, it would be just changing who has oversight, and who has management and policy setting, over there.
I'm gonna go to Jose. I just want to say, Jewel, great questions. I personally think this could be a good thing. I think that the idea of sending it to public safety is good because you have Raphael and you have the NYPD, and I think it'd be good to get feedback to see how they feel about this. Because they're the ones that are gonna actually have to do it, whether it's a great idea or not, right? So Jose, and then I recognize Xavier. So Jose first.
I think we should definitely have that conversation with DOT first
Yeah.
before we take a position. Thinking with what if they don't have capacity, what if they don't have the manpower, what if they don't have everything else that falls through this, there's a lot of questions. I'm not against
Totally.
the concept of it. In certain position, it makes sense, but this would be a drastic change. What's currently there, so I think we should get the agencies, what if they tell us we don't have the capability to do this? So that's all, I was curious, but I think the logic behind it makes sense.
I wonder if they'd have to get all new uniforms. Okay, Xavier?
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Jose. And yeah, for those of us who remember, and I would recommend speaking with Russell Schuler, who had to remind me because they used to wear the brown shirts. And part of that enforcement unit is they fought to be included with NYPD because the amount of assaults they would experience from ticketing. And at the time, anytime you would assault a police officer, the repercussions were more severe. And so they were fighting for those same rights so that they would not be mistreated without there being repercussions. So that was a big push not on that unit of enforcement. And I think, I would caution, and this is why I think going to public, and thank you for bringing it up, Derek. I think just when the discussion happens after outreach to DOT, how you would unwind something like that would be challenging at the best. And I think it would be important also to get feedback from that enforcement unit. And it's not dissimilar to what we see with the crossing guards as well. They also fought for the same protections, not dissimilar to what we see with MTA if you assault a bus driver or a train operator. So I think that was a big push in the 90s from events that happened in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So yeah, that's just a little historical fact, but definitely have a conversation with Russell, who could reminded me of the history, and would definitely offer edifying information.
Go ahead, Angel. Thank you, Xavier.
I just wanted to add in support of the intention of this resolution. DOT has been more and more active over the years, over the last 3 administrations, which doing like street redesign work, that in theory would improve traffic flow throughout the city, but often, despite their best efforts and despite their designs, even their best ideas are thwarted by a lack of enforcement. So we've many times heard presentations from DOT about these many street redesigns. And then we ask them questions about, well, what about this? And a common response is, well, that's an enforcement question. And then you ask, well, who's enforcing? And they say the PD. And we all know very well the PD is not enforcing parking stuff. If they do it, it's once in a hidden corner somewhere, but in most places, most of the time, you're seeing that there is an enforcement. And I'm sure you all have witnessed on something as simple as alternate side of the street parking, cars do not move. There are, people, I guess, have calculated or budgeted to take that one ticket if they happen to get it. But the cars don't move, and that diminishes the efficacy of the street cleaning operation. One last little pet peeve of mine with traffic enforcement officers as they, currently exist. I remember them wearing brown, and I remember them giving tickets. I also see now they don't seem to do jack anything. In many places where they're instructed to help direct traffic, it's a 50-50 proposition. Sometimes they're directing traffic and sometimes they're just standing there looking at their phone. So, I think a conversation about, reigniting actual effective and consistent and dependable enforcement is a worthwhile conversation.
Thank you, Angel.
Mhm.
Xavier, is that an old hand?
No, I just wanted to say is that I would agree with Angel in this instance about when they've been asked to redirect traffic, that there is a reticence to actually do that. I live in a self-enforced precinct zone by the 23rd precinct, and I can tell you and self-enforced means the 23rd has to enforce the ticketing, not the traffic officers. And we still have traffic officers pass through here as well as DSNY. I do think that just as a conversation as it goes to public safety and transportation, we saw a change in the culture of moving our cars for alternate side parking due to the pandemic. And I think that has held over, and especially in this area where people will sit in their cars like they used to in the Upper East Side, move as soon as the cleaner comes, back in. That happened, it happens historically here, but since the pandemic, now the trend used to be pre-pandemic, people would double park on the other side that didn't have alternate side, wait for the cleaner to come through, and then everyone would move back over. And I think it has been, I don't think it's been enforced when it comes to ticketing writ large like it used to. So it's a conversation. I just want to add some context and history from over in the southern part of the district. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Xavier. So I think this is gonna go to public safety, so we don't need to discuss it here further, but I think those were all great comments, and this is definitely something that we should continue to look into. All right, so with that said, we'll move to B, which is proposed legislation discussion. So I think you've all been hearing me with this idea of mine as at least part of the agenda it's kind of on the basis of, it's really dependent on what the local electeds are doing to some extent. So I look at it in a few ways, right? One, and I've identified some because I want to be more thorough with the examples to really explain it, what I'm looking for us to try to do. So some of our electeds have bills, and we'll go through a couple just as examples that I think personally, but you'll have to agree. And these are just examples. These are not what I'm asking you to take on. There's things I thought were interesting that we might just, they're in committee. They maybe need a little nudge or whatever, and we're looking to strengthen our relationship with our electeds, kind of build I think a two-way street. And in some instances, it might be as simple as, the committee discussing a bill passed by one of these electeds and, maybe just being like, you know what, that's pretty straightforward. We can issue a letter of support to that legislative body, just saying that, we support our elected bill for this, right? The other component could be where we do support it, but we have some modifications or ideas of our own. In that regard, I would probably say that when we issue a letter or whatever, that we send that just directly to that elected, right? So we don't want to kind of like be correcting them, give them an opportunity to have that feedback. And then the third scenario, which we'll get to, is there are some areas where, and maybe there are reasons where at least our local electeds, they're not really pushing legislation where those committees may have purview, and we'll get to that. And I'll go through this quickly, and then that's where I don't know if I'm sure we've done it. I always say it. I don't, but obviously we can't write legislation bills, but really there's nothing stopping us from kind of proposing something and suggesting it, right? And I just think it'll get like more focused and pushing for a lot of the things I think that we discuss and that get presented to us, but kind of just be more, what do you call it, proactive and not reactive, right? And I think that at the very least, it'll definitely get the board more recognition and get us out there, which is one of the things I'm looking to do. Just quickly, like one of my ideas has been to do open office hours with the chair, but also like you're all welcome to sit there with me and keep me company. The people might not come the first few times. I hope they do. I just whether, I don't believe it's true, but obviously there's always people, oh, the community boards. I really want to dispel that notion that we're not accessible, because we are. And my hope is people will actually take us up on that. but at the very least, if we're advertising that we are available, that when people say that, we can point them to it, and maybe they didn't know, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll come. With that said, as just a few examples, it's pretty easy to look up. You can basically type your elected in and bills, or, you can use AI to at least direct you in the direction, and then go to the actual legislation on that, state Senate website or verify it. So for example, we'll go to the housing and assembly, right? So Assembly Member Gibbs has a proposed bill. Some of them are proposed by them as a sponsor. Some of them are co-sponsors. I focus on ones where they're a sponsor or co-sponsor. So this gives this very overview, gives the city council the authority to force NYCHA reporting and oversight. And it's interesting because that oversight he's asking, though, would be for the city council to have that oversight. So that's just one idea. The kind of to piggyback on that, then our council member Encarnacion is a sponsor or co-sponsor of a bill that calls on the state to provide $3 billion annually for NYCHA capital repairs. Okay, so those are kind of two housing ones. I don't think they're very divisive. I think it's, anything that would probably be supportive of at least moving the ball towards helping NYCHA is something I feel like this board would support. So also, those are ideas for you. We'll just do human services quickly. So Serrano has, I tried to get them all. Serrano has for serious the Senate Mental Health Committee, it's that it would prohibit automated suicide hotlines, right? So you basically, you would have to, okay. A live person would have to answer the phone, right? That's it, really. And they would have to be multilingual capacity. I don't know how many languages that would encompass, but that if it doesn't specify, there's a good suggestion to make, right? Then on another human services one, we have Cordell Clear, which I think this is a great one personally. It automatically would enroll SNAP recipients into the Medicare Savings Program. So, and I think this could go bigger than that in some ways, right? Where it's you have to sign up and fill out an individual application for every single service, right? And for seniors who might not have technical capabilities, maybe they are relying on, they have to go somewhere to someone assist them. It'd be nice if they could have fewer times they'd have to do this. And it also would streamline people being able to get those benefits quicker. So then, I'll do one more because this is very relevant, I think. So Salam, by the way, it's sometimes interesting. We'll talk about something here, and the dates will align very interestingly with all of a sudden I see a bill there. Now, it probably is a coincidence, but I like to give us some credit. And one of them that actually came up was, well, we did talk about it, I think, at the task force. It was last month, and I think he proposed it last month. So we're on the same wavelength, which was because it was a discussion of Second Avenue subway construction affecting businesses that are not where their property isn't being bought out. So they aren't being displaced, but they're being severely impacted with not much economic assistance. But I brought up, well, what about just that, where that Con Ed thing has been there for God knows how long, and the data posts, what about some kind of assistance for really long construction projects in front of small businesses that are blocking them or whatever? And this was an idea to potentially give grants in certain drastic instances. Which then gets the Second Avenue subway. Serrano and Gibbs basically have the same bill, one in the Senate, one in the Assembly, which is to create a grant program specifically for businesses impacted by the Second Avenue subway, where they are not being bought out, so they will be there, and they're not only, in some cases, are they not getting assistance, they're having their awnings taken down by the Second Avenue subway, MTA, and they're being told when you have to put them back up, you're gonna have to get a permit to do that. It's because, maybe you never had a permit in the first place. It's kind of wild. And so, that's a straightforward thing I think the task force could talk about. I don't see why a lot of these couldn't just be things we start supporting. Now to Jason, right? So I looked for anything for land use. So nothing, right? None of them are, and I'm hoping Elsie will, because she's on the land use committee and the city council, but she's just been there a minute. So, it is, I don't expect, I know she's busy, but it might be something worth looking into, your guys' ideas. I think that would be opportunity for you, it's up to all of you, but like to spearhead that and be like, wow, nobody's looking at anything land use, like identifying some issues. So there was a big void on yours as much as I found out. A lot of the things that were land use were really just housing because, it was about displacement more than it was about creating anything, new. So, those are the ideas. So I think I covered kind of examples of all of them, like the multilingual one, right? Like depending on what they're defining as multilingual, that could be a suggestion. Some of these seem pretty good as is, and then where there are voids. That's all I have to say on that. Rosa?
Well, I was gonna ask if you found anything with environmental awareness justice or in youth.
Well, no, the
Youth, there was.
Or the Claire.
Can go through. There is a Suicide Prevention Act. It requires schools to implement suicide prevention policies. So yeah, I just didn't want to go through all of them for the sake of time. But it focuses on grades 7 to 12. And it requires staff training, crisis response protocols, and suicide prevention policies, which I think is tremendously important. Public safety. Salon proposed to put a licensed social worker in every police precinct, to respond to crises that might be mental health. They bring somebody in and the NYPD might not be trained to respond to that. And rather than having to wait, at parks, there was something about the Esplanade, which obviously very important. So we can get to that. These are ideas. I would like to see us start. Jason's got more of a challenge because they don't really have anything to go off of. But I think the rest of the committees have things that could go on agendas, at least to start discussions. Jewel?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
At my last meeting, I actually, went to city council and looked at community engaging. And there is a bill that's being sponsored by Elsie, so, I can read it. It's a local law, to amend the administrative code of the city of New York in relation to wellness checks for older adults during certain weather events. So that's one out of there's like 4 there that went on that day of the committee, but she's sponsoring that, so that's one thing I'd like to highlight and reach out to her about.
Awesome. That's exactly what I'm asking, basically. And I really think it'll be a great thing once we get it going. Anybody else? Any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions? Okay, well, okay.
We had also discussed about trying to alleviate the staff's overall work, but we're also asking, and we're thinking of having them. Well, all right, I'll start with this. We're modeled after the city council. So I've been doing some research with the city council. I work on the chair of the committee. And many times we go through different projects here, resolutions and things, and we don't really know what our electeds are, their positions are. And I'll give you an example. I was, this capital project that I brought up at full board, 128th Street. So when it first came to us, the alarming traffic that's the additional traffic that's over there. So I went to see Diana's office, a relationship with her, and I walked in, she was unaware of this. Deputy Speaker of like city council, and then she ripped into DOT. Just to, and I think that what I'd like to do, and something that we wanted to discuss with all of you, is to see how we can work between the chairs and the staff where we would get like a debrief, and in that debrief, it's not just, which we get already, we get the information of what we're doing, but we would like to know like positions of what electeds are in that regard, so that we more or less know where we stand. And honestly, in terms of information, so that they know as well, because this was a serious capital project, it's huge, like, forget the amount, but it's like a lot of money, and happening in her community, she was unaware. And she was not happy about it, and she made feel it afterwards. But I think that this is, in the spirit of us working closer with our electeds, we should be having that communication. It's just as simple as an email with, hey, what's your office position on this? This is, we're bringing this up to this committee. And then that liaison would refer to every chair and like, what's the next project that we have up for, do we have anything? But let's say like a terrace kind of situation,
Well, I actually have a flag, the grocery store.
the groceries.
Our city council member was not made aware, was not reached out to by the mayor's office. Found out 2 days in advance of us from public, but didn't have no input, and then the automatic, we're talking more, I mean, 6 eggs, right, half a dozen. They're talking moratorium for substance abuse, but then they're opening a grocery store that's gonna be from what I read, it's for all of Manhattan. So, we're trying to, for lack of a better word, manage our expectations in the district, but there goes a political fiasco, for lack
From
of
the
a better
mayor's
word.
office.
Yep.
And that's a clear example of what we can hope to prevent by having this more inclusive situation where you would get your breakdown and it would be like, councilperson's position on this is this, the assembly, whoever adjoining assembly and the senator, and just basically so that we are aware, community board to know where everyone's position. We've discussed this before with the staff, but we do think that it would be very beneficial moving forward. So it's something I would bring up to your attention as well.
Does anyone have any questions for Jose? Any additional comments? All right, so I mean, again, like Jason's got it a more difficult task than the other committees, unless, he's able to, and I'd be happy to help out with that, but I really would like, if each of you could have at least one bill or something on your agenda for May. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, if you're within I put this together for every committee in like one night, so I'm only asking for one bill. I just think that like, we can like, and not for the sake of not doing it at all, but like when I see a full board meeting that has not one action item, and then I look at other boards and they're kind of like cranking things out, and it's not for the sake of just doing it, but there's a lot of stuff here that should be getting done. And I'm happy to help you guys as much as you want me to help you as in assistance. And again, these were just suggestions, like Jewel found one, I didn't, I think that's a great one. So I just want you guys to start doing this. That's Jewel.
So for environment and open space in the parks, rely on the act in terms of legislation. Because they'll be a great help. And are you just switch on city, state, and federal, or just?
City, and we can make suggestions to the state electeds. I mean, obviously we have like less of a say, but they are elected, they'll take our ideas, right? We're just advising them.
Environmental issues.
Yeah, I think, thinking out loud, like Serrano was like pro oxygen, so if you reach out to Serrano and make sure that the air still exists.
I mean, you're in this thing where they're like, could air be poisonous, but it just takes 90 years to kill you, right? It's funny.
In a concrete box. There's nothing you're gonna do to filter.
That is true. And on one thing I just said that I think I want to dispel this notion, Angel, correct me if I'm wrong, but Angel said that like and I agree with him, he hates when he hears, oh, we're just advisory, right? At the end of the day, everybody is like advisory till you get to the top person. But those people that ultimately make those decisions are doing it, and if they're doing their job right, they should be basing that off of a lot of the advice they're getting. So like that, we're basically saying, oh, so if we're not at the top of the totem pole on everything, what's the point of this? But the point is we get to do our part in shaping that. And I just think that I think we will be surprised with how everybody wants to take good ideas, right? So if we give good ideas, they're not going to care where they're coming from. I'm like, oh, that was the community board's idea. They're gonna be like, oh, that's great. So I think that's it on that one. So we're moving along pretty good. This one will be even quicker. Preparing for district budget consultations. Oh, did someone have something to say? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm just trying to, because the part D is going to take a minute, I think. But I mean, item D. So budget consultations, right? So, in the summertime, I've never participated in it. I don't think it was happening that frequently. I was also the licenses chair for a while, so we had nothing to do with that process. Just why would we? But the idea here is, and we have to be proactive with this. we have our budget requests, we have our statement of district needs, we have all that. We got our responses from the agencies. I think a lot of us agree that these are vague, generic responses, and we've been on that vicious cycle. I think we're getting better at it. I thought with this last exercise with our statement on the mayor's preliminary budget that we're getting more creative. I thought the conversations at every committee were a lot better. I know, Jason, I think your agenda coming up is tailored to kind of exactly what I've been pushing for, and Jason went ahead and kind of took the bones and did that, which I think was great. But the summer budget consultations, right? You should each be looking at it with your committee, right? Which of our budget requests, did we get one of those responses for, or where they said they accommodated it and they didn't? And kind of working with Sage and the district needs committee, in tandem with Angel, and saying, okay, like, I'll just use Rosa, right? Like the Parks Department, right? We had these 3 requests. We need more clarity. Why you keep saying no? Is there a better way to ask this? Is there something that we're missing that we need and there's funding there, but we're not pushing for it? So these invitations have to start going out, obviously, because they're in the summer. And if you wait too long, it gets filled up and then you don't get really, I think maybe the best people they can send or anybody they can send. So we're in April. I know I'm putting a lot on everyone's plate. But this should be fresh in our heads as we've looked at it. And I would encourage you not only to ask your members for agenda recommendations, but to proactively do this work in between meetings. That I like some idea in May where Angel could at least start opening that door with the agency, sending at least a couple of ideas and saying more might come in June. Because that is the time frame in which we have to have these budget consultations. And so each committee identifies what departments are, relevant to those requests. And then Angel will reach out, send them, this is what you're basically coming in to speak to them about. And then at that table will be, the chair of that committee, the district needs chair, Angel, myself. And I mean, honestly, like, I get this like back and forth about being inclusive or not, whatever. I want to be as inclusive as possible. There just might be some instances where I would like to keep the room open, but maybe sometimes, and myself included, we just have to be observing to let the people that are in that group kind of do what they're doing. And then you can always give that feedback before the meeting or after the meeting. So again, that's just another ask. That's very time sensitive. So if you want to prioritize that over the proposed legislation discussion, I find that a little bit more interesting, but this is probably maybe more important right now. So prioritize that. But so, I mean, if you guys have any questions about it, I know maybe it's something that, I kind of got a crash course from Angel on it. He would do a better job than I did. He might want to give a crash course now, but go ahead, Angel.
Sure, all right, they're fine. For those that haven't participated in the consultation before, I'll just give a quick explanation. If you have heard it before, and if you bear with me, I'll try to be brief. So, as part of the preparation for each board's statement of needs and submission of budget requests, there are 2 sets of consultations that are held by community boards. One is the borough budget consultations, which all the district managers in each borough meet with representatives from each agency and discuss, borough needs, and seek clarification from the agencies as to what the agency's priorities are for, the upcoming fiscal year. Modeled on that are the district budget consultations, where each district has the opportunity, should they see fit, to invite agencies in to have a district-focused conversation about community needs and corresponding budget requests. At the borough consultations, it's frowned upon to ask district-specific questions. So there really isn't an opportunity there. We try to sneak them in at the end if we get through all our questions, but it's not something you can count on. But at the district, it's all about CB11. We had a good run a few years back of me and my ignorance inviting people to come and have the meetings, and I got lucky. And, you know, we had, 10 different agencies show up. They're not required to come. We asked them, well, they're supposedly required to come, but they don't. But we had a good turnout, DOT was really good, HPD was really good, Parks Department was really good. And then some agencies didn't show. That aside, we'll look at this exercise optimistically. What we did was work with the leadership of each committee to craft questions. So the way we do the borough consultations is that we submit a list of questions in advance that the agencies are supposed to come prepared with answers to. So modeled on that, we do the same thing with the district stuff. So what I do is I lead with a number of just general questions that aren't follow-ups on previous budget requests, right? So other things that have come up that we want some clarity on. What are your priorities? Have you worked on this? What are your ideas and the other? And then in the second set of questions, those are the clarifying questions about responses that we got to budget requests. So I think all of this is key, but that second part in particular, so we're preparing in January for a response to the preliminary budget, and everyone is submitting new ideas and wanting to change the language to a budget request. And you hear me say 100 times, this is not the time. The district budget consultation is the time. When you're meeting across from the representative from the Department of Education, if you're able to, schedule that meeting, and you can ask specifically, we asked for 10 chairs for this school, or 10 doors for this school, you said, blah, 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 not an unclear answer. What did you mean by that? Are we asking clearly enough? Is it already in your schedule? Should we stop asking? It might already be in their capital plan. So maybe the answer is no for 27, but the answer is yes for 29. It's good to have that information. So that's the opportunity to get that clarity. You use that clarity to one of two things: create new budget requests that are informed by that consultation, or clarify existing requests that are, informed by that conversation, so that we avoid the exercise of we're making something up at committee in the fall, sometimes out of thin air. Then it falls to the agency swats it away. In January, we get frustrated and we curse up every agency. And then we don't do anything until September and we start the whole thing all over again, right? The consultation provides an opportunity to just sit across the table from someone and get an answer. It's very difficult for someone sitting right across from you to give you, to not answer your question, right? It's possible, but more difficult. It's a lot easier when we submit a bunch of questions electronically, they respond to us electronically. They don't have to look at us, so they can give us whatever the answer they feel like giving us is. So that's what the consultations are. I have found them very helpful. Some agencies are a lot better than others. For example, DYCD, if you get the consultation, Ash, fantastic, but you almost don't even need to have it because he'll beat you to it. They have this one rep that's been there a billion years, and he'll beat you to it. He'll tell you everything. He'll just send you the list. David knows him really well.
Yeah, David was something.
Yeah. So that guy is, a godsend. We had DOE come in probably 6 years ago now. This person, Maria, was really great. Other than that, it's been a struggle to get a rep from DOE, which is frustrating.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because we've been in contact with the Manhattan facilities person and the district
Awesome.
facilities person. Should we also have them, could we include them in the
Yes,
meeting?
definitely.
Because I know we have like the agency wide.
So when we invite folks, we're not inviting, for example, for public safety, you have DOT come every year. So it's like their liaison. It's not so much that person, they're real good, but we're trying to get the budget person that can actually speak to budget. So that's a great point. If you can pull a facilities person, that's fantastic. I'll wrap up in a sec. So DOT, when they've been in the room, they've brought the borough commissioner. That's the decider. That's great to have that person at the table. And he'll tell you, it's she now, but before, the last time we had it was he. Different person. And he will just tell you, yes, or that's never gonna happen. All right, it's good to know that, to know which direction you're pointing in. Like this pedestrian bridge, I knew about that a bazillion years ago. But it took them ages to finally come with a plan. In subsequent years, like including now until the thing's replaced. Jose has an opportunity to sit across and be like, look, this is my concerns are, this is the way I can tweak it, and you could try to negotiate that at the table. Or a parks department with Steve Simon, Rosa. He's fantastic. He's really hard to schedule because he's so busy. But you get him and he has every answer to every single thing. So it's kind of impossible unless you insist on submitting bad requests after you've spoken with Steve and his team, because they're very helpful. Other agencies, I'm leaving some out that are good, but other agencies are impossible. I'll say, Jewel, the Department of Social Services has been impossible. They will not come. They won't come. So if there's some magic code that somebody has or something, connection to pull that off, that'd be great, because we're a very high service neighborhood. And it's been a frustration to me that they have been unwilling to attend. The person that was most reluctant is no longer there. Perhaps the new person is better. So just something to be aware of.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah.
Angel reminded me of something. So I wish Sage was here tonight, but he's on top of this stuff. So I think he can lend a hand to all of you with his committee. Angel, I'm sure he's already aware and you guys have been talking about it, but you'll probably do better than me at just kind of briefing on him on what the committees will be doing, and he can work in tandem so he could kind of help with their workload.
I'll have Marlene and Khalid send each of the chairs like previous years, like list of questions, just as a sample, so you get the
That's great.
general idea.
Thank you so much. Asher?
So is it possible, just, if it takes too much time, then no, but could we go over who on the district needs committee is responsible for what committee? Because,
That's gonna have to be a question for the chair.
I
of that
don't
committee.
remember.
Because.
because I know it's changing now.
He has it on the cell phone.
He did it because you would know already. We'll see who was assigned during this last process to.
Well, I know it was a sign, I'm saying like, sorry, let me clarify. If the person's changing, are we including the old and the new person?
Well, like, I mean, what I'm understanding is still, there's been one change. David is no longer on the committee and Fernando is.
Okay,
I don't know if it's gonna be as
I just
simple as.
wanted that confirmation because I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the obvious move at the moment would be just to let Fernando absorb what David was doing, but it's possible they might do that differently. That's up to them.
Okay.
But you'll be all aware of who your person is, during this process moving forward, but thank you. All right, so I think that wraps that part up, and now we will go to bylaw revisions. Before, I go into specific ones, I'd like us to even try to take some, action tonight. Jose, is there anything you wanted to say on all this? I know you had said you might want to make a few comments.
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to make it a full board. I don't think our business has to meet a full board. I was a bit disappointed by our previous vice chair's comments. I think that we just started this, our term back in April. We've been there 4 months. Not sure what the focus of elections in the bylaws are. I'm not against making changes necessarily, but I don't know if there's necessarily a gigantic push to make a change, right? Considering we have, I don't know, how many months left? 20 months. No, in our 2 years. We have a 2-year term,
20.
so we have 20 months left.
That's easy math.
Yeah, that's easy math. I know. It's confusing, and I just, and it bothered me, but I kept it to myself. I said, you know what, executive's coming up. I'll bring it up in executive. I think that we should be clear about the work that we do. I think if anything, we're doing too much work. But that's all right. That's part of what we said we were gonna do, so we're gonna move forward with that. It was also confusing in regards to bringing up the bylaws committee. Because when she was vice chair, she was executive to start some bylaw changes, which ended up creating a bylaw, which she then made certain accusations that was used to like stall the project. At the end of the day, you know, I feel things should be clear. She was on the record. I don't mind being on the record as well. I think that we're here to do work. I thought we were done with all these like petty little like election things from months ago. And you know, it doesn't make sense to me in this regard, but I want to move forward. I feel like one of the things we're talking in board oversight is how to make sure that we're all speaking well to each other and making sure that things are very clear. Because I think when you let things fester, it's always gonna be there kind of like picking at you. I'd rather just be direct and put it out in the open. So that way we are all on the same page. I think that we have a lot of work to do in our bylaws, and this is just like the beginning of it. These are very like simple things that need to change. That shouldn't be very controversial. And I'm sure at one point we'll get the controversial things, but I just don't know, considering we have 20 months left in our term, how elections are such a big push to handle right now. But that was my comment.
No Southern Asher.
Okay, so the push for changes before was because of the fear of the difference in people being term limited. We had an election, we had the election at the same time, we've always had the election, and we managed to vote people in. And I don't think, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that elections is an issue anymore. People have to give new members the responsibility to get to know the leadership as well as other board members. So sometimes changing things doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to become more invested or there's no reason why people, if you're voting for people in November and you get on in May, you have May, June, if you attend events, you have July and August, you have September and October for an elections kind of splits. And you vote in November. So that was, you know, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff and I'm not gonna say anymore because elections, but I think that this is a moot point. I think that the biggest issue was 3 terms to 2. It was on my recommendation and others that it gets truncated to 2 because 4 years is enough and you are already experiencing 4 months, so you know how it can be. But other than that, 1-year terms is ridiculous for the simple reason that by the time that you make connections, you have to then hope that you get voted in and the electeds that you're working with can potentially see you as a lame duck. So, you know, I think that's something to be discussed in board oversight if you wish to do that, but a bylaws convening for what? If we have small changes we need to do, then let's just change it because we keep giving oxygen to these ideas and these ideas will never be put to bed.
Thank you, Nelsa Asher.
Is it now an appropriate time to comment specifically on the document I'm from?
We're gonna get to that. So cause I have a couple things to say quickly, but yeah, I'll go last. So whoever wants to talk.
I agree 100% with you, and I think the appropriate time when those changes should have been made for elections were prior to this election, which is when she was vice chair, and unfortunately, at the time the leadership knew that this was going to happen, and they did nothing about it. The focus of their bylaw revision was to remove the standing chair, and which happened. So I just don't see why it's such an urgency now, but I'd like to
There's no
just
urgency.
clear it up and just, so that we can move forward and let these things just let go.
Okay, Xavier, then I have a couple comments and then we'll actually go to this document and then I think we'll be done for tonight. Go ahead, Xavier.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your comments, Jose and others. I do appreciate that. Look, our work is for the people in the community. And I think those of you who know me, that's what it's about. In this particular instance, the only thing and I appreciate the draft that was forwarded around, very helpful. I'd like to get to the discussion. As advised by city law, which you have seen, Chair Adam, is that, there's only one pressing thing and it has to get done before the next election. is the advisement they gave us previously, which is we just have to make minor tweaks to our bylaws, so that way, as you expressed during full board, that if you are eligible for reappointment, then you may carry on with the term. It's that simple. That's the only thing that I would say is, our feet are to the fire. And again, you have a longer runway with that. But with that, that was the only comment, and I appreciate everyone else expressing their positions, and I share them as well. And thank you, everyone, and look forward to carrying on the meeting.
Thank you, Xavier. All right, just quickly, I know there's been talk about this election or whatever. I'm speaking about it more generally because I don't take any of this personally. This, even if this one idea, your idea was made, we were elected in for 2 years, so that would be something that would have happened afterwards. But the 1 year thing, as far as I was understanding, was raised was because of term limits. 1 year does nothing different than 2 years. And I think we've already seen what can happen to the board during an election. Especially when the wrong person has been tasked with leading that committee. The other thing I'll say is when I became chair, this was a hot topic. I was told in December before I even became chair that I had to solve all of this. Every idea that the bylaw committee was given or had, it was voted on. So if there wasn't enough changes for people, it was because the committee didn't vote for it. There were things I supported that the committee didn't want, and vice versa. To be honest with you, I don't know if it was the makeup of the committee or whatever. It was we're not, and I was chair of it. We're not really able to do much. And then lastly, with that said, so when I was tasked with this, I spent a large number of hours. I can share it with you. Me moving people around, figuring out who could run when, and this and that, and when I got it all together, I met with Angel before, I don't know what meeting it was before. And Angel told me, just throw it all out. The elections are fine when they happen. The 2-year terms are fine when they happen. Basically, the way we've been operating now is fine. These term limits now actually don't really impact us pretty much at all. And if it is so minimal that it makes no difference. Again, like I said at full board, and I'll say it again, if people want to discuss this, but my thing is there is no movement for this. It's 1 or 2 people talking about it, and that's not enough to keep giving this the time, that amount of time. So I'd like to put this to rest. There's one election related thing here, yeah, and then that's my opinion on this.
Can you just talk a little more about that last part again? You're saying there's a few people really pushing for.
There's one person who seems to be, and they've already been named, but that seems to be the only person I think that even wants to have this discussion. And as Jose said, that group of leadership knew that term limits were coming. And if it was so important to address this, why did it only become a hot topic now? Like Jose says, the time to have solved this was then. There is no problem now. Let's just forget about it. So now let's go to what was actually written down, because Jason, I think, wants to get out of here. All right, so I came last month with too many, I think, for us to go through. So I cut down on it to about 4. Maybe we could go on. Asher, you had a question. I
more had a comment, and I was gonna email this, but I figured I might as well say it here.
Yep.
For number 2.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I have stuff that's in there. I fully think it should be the same amount as full board, because I've noticed when Rosa was reading the attendance on Tuesday, there was quite a few people who had 4 absences in one committee and not the other. Us as full board members, as full members, we're supposed to be at 2 committees. We're not public members. That was what we agreed to sign up for. And the fact that we keep seeing over kind of slipping under the rug with attendance because they show up to one committee that they claim to be more interested in and not the other is a problem. So I think, I don't know if that would put up some legal basis or if that's too much, but I truly think we should start holding some of the full board members to a higher level standard than public members.
So just so I'm clear, so your suggestion is then that it would be one committee if you
Yeah,
met the.
instead of two-thirds of total committee meetings.
And by the way, just so you're aware, as it's written, that part, the 2/3 of total means, that is already in the bylaws.
I know that's
And
already.
it hasn't actually been the practice, because if it was 2/3, you wouldn't actually technically need to meet it on both committees. We've made it where you have to make it on both committees. As this is written, it's 2/3 of your total meetings combined on committee. So let's say you had 12 meetings and 2 committees in 6 months, and you missed 6 on all of them and 0 on the other, or 3 and 3, it makes no difference. So technically, 3 and 3 would be in bad standing, but we've also been doing that wrong. We've been saying you need 4 missed to be removed, which is actually meaning you only have to come to 1/3 of your meetings. So we've actually flipped that. So
Sorry, I'm thinking about that.
my only pushback on that, Asher, is, and I've been saying this over and over, this conversation isn't to remove people from the board or punish people. This is to get people to honor some level of commitment that they've made.
Yeah, that's.
And it's to make rules that we can enforce, right? Because I think, to the bylaw discussion, our bylaws aren't as much of a problem as just the inability to enforce the bylaws.
Well,
My only pushback on you is that, and I agree with you in principle, but we can barely enforce this less strict policy. I'm afraid that if that gets rolled out, all hell might break loose. It might be too drastic to start with.
I know it's really drastic, but I feel like it needs to happen, because also not to be like that, and I'm not just talking about one specific person. I've seen multiple public members show up a lot more than some full board members. And I think that that's a little bit of a problem, and it doesn't look good on us when we have people who show up to full board and they're asking questions about their own committee that they haven't shown up for. Or not to be like that, because you haven't shown up to any of the meetings and you're asking questions about something that was in your committee.
Yeah, we're gonna go 2 more and then.
I think
we'll
it
get to
just
the
needs,
votes.
I think drastic is, if in the past we wanna, I'm sorry, and if in the future we wanna like revise it back to be a little less strict, I think we're in a place where we have to be a little bit more strict, and not necessarily to remove people, but I think we need to be very clear, so that way people don't take advantage of anything, any little nuance that could be in the bylaws.
Okay, I think you're heard.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Jose, then Derek, then I would, and then Jason.
I don't have a question, I'm ready to make a motion.
Following the 2/3.
I'll get to you after that.
After I agree with what you're saying, just so we're clear, but if we're gonna follow the new 2/3 rule, we can only have 2 absences per committee.
Okay.
We haven't been doing it correct, is the problem. We've been doing it where as long as you're not meeting at one, you're not meeting the other. But now that we've read it and we verified with the law, we had a whole big conversation, it is 2/3. So you have 6 meetings each, it's 12, you can only have 2 absences per committee. Anything past that will put you into like a board oversight.
Yeah, 3 is the threshold, not.
So 3 is the threshold, so sorry, just to make, I'm really bad at math. So just to make sure,
So like
The
12 right
2/3
now, I'll make it real easy. We'll go total. So if most people are on 2 committees, right? Let's say 6 meetings. The way we've been doing it right now, you'd have to miss 8 to be up for removal. With us actually falling into what our bylaws say, and we're not changing that portion, it would be 6. So that's already just by actually adhering to what has been written, it goes from 8 to 6, which is now, like Jose said, already getting stricter. And then we can always, this is a living document, but I think that the baby step to that might be the best move going forward. And then board oversight is analyzing other aspects of this, which you're welcome to watch their meetings or.
yeah.
All right, I really want to get to this because I know Jason's got a motion, which I think makes me happy. So Jose, Derek, Rosa, and then I would like to enter. Oh, you did, sorry. Okay, Derek, Rosa, and then I want to hear Jason's motion.
I just wanted to state, like, the charter says substantial absence is a reason to remove someone, and we get to decide what that means. So like, we're doing our part of like deciding what that means. I do think it is frustrating to see a person just blow up the committee entirely, and what that does to that committee, the work, especially when it impacts quorum. But some of the stuff happening at board oversight is like the possibility, like, well, removing them from that specific committee and reassigning them or doing other things to them as a consequence for that. which I think if we show we're serious about it, then hopefully Asher, we get to a place where the people join, like honor the commitment that they're making. The reality is like, we don't remove people, so we are fighting over how to remove someone, but then we don't ever actually even do it. I will say, I do think about, they're not showing up to a single committee. So, but I understand at this point, like baby steps to get there, but I did want to share that Asher, that I do think when a person blows off a single committee, that's something that is a problem. But I hope in board oversight, we can address it.
Okay, great points. All right, I'm gonna, because I know you want to respond, and then really Asher, Rose, and then I'm
know,
gonna go
I'll
to
make it
Jason. I
very
won't, okay, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit dangerous talking about the moving people committees, because I remember I'm not specifically talking about whatever leadership was here before, that became a little bit of a trend that if someone was on the threshold of getting kicked off because of attendance for a committee, they get switched to another one, and then basically that clock resets. So does this fix, this would fix that, right? Because even if they're getting switched.
Yes,
Okay, that was more, yeah.
and even when you get switched, it carries over.
It carries
And now it's the total amount, so those still, because you know what, like you're saying, right, when you get removed, it's like you get a reprieve, because now you can't hit the threshold on that committee anymore. That would still carry over. It doesn't
Okay,
get,
then-
you know what I mean?
then
So
forget
that's,
it.
well, so it,
Because that doesn't, then what's the point of moving anyway?
so, well, the only point, well, because here's the thing, I guess I'll get to too, which has bothered me a lot very quickly. When, say, someone's gonna show up late enough where they're not technically gonna be present, I've been asking, what's the point of that person being there? I'm like, because you can still participate in voting and doing the work. So that, I understand the frustration and sitting in a meeting, you'll be absent in, but you should still wanna be able to have your voice heard. If right now, we're doing it on each committee, so let's say, right now it's been 4, right? So if I remove you from a committee, when you're at 3, you're in no danger now of hitting it on that committee because you don't go there anymore. So that would basically give you a reset when you go to the new committee because you're at 0.
Right.
But now, when we actually do it the way we're supposed to, it's 2/3 of your total meetings combined. So those 3 still matter because they're playing a part. You understand what I'm saying, right? Maybe I'll explain it the best way, but those 3 are still part of the totality of your 2/3 of your meetings. So that actually is the same as having not left the committee. I think the reason for moving people is because sometimes people do get put on committees that their schedule didn't work and they weren't really spoken to enough about, or they might not really not want to be on that committee. So I do want that ability to actually move people. And now that it's not actually rewarding, let's call it like less than stellar behavior, I actually don't have an issue with doing that because I think it might help and get people more engaged. I don't want you on a committee that you really don't want to be on. We don't need 20 people on every committee. Sometimes a smaller committee does better. So I can explain it to you more. I know you're still giving out.
It's not gelling for me, but no, that when I
Can you do it better than me, either?
No.
Think of all of your
No, but we
committees
don't-
and it's
we
all
don't
of the,
discuss
it's all of
Okay,
the.
I can do it. I can like write it down. Okay. Rosa and then Jason.
So.
I'm sorry, but you should understand it because you're about to vote on it.
Okay, no, well, because we're
I
not,
mean, Nelson,
no, because we're not, because,
you're not gonna vote on it?
well, no, we are, but I guess my point is that part of it is already what's in there. We're not changing that. The 2/3 of total meetings is not actually the part that changes these more than it is. Well, I'm gonna hear what Jason says and we can have the discussion once the motion's on the floor. So, okay, let me try to do this quickly, right? So let's call it 6 meetings right now, if we do this the right way, right? You're on 2 committees, and let's say you've missed 3 and you've missed 2, right? And I take you off the committee where you've missed 3, and I move you to another committee, and you missed that next meeting, you're now at the 6. Because it's the total, so it's 3 now and 2, and now you have 1. So now you're at the 6, and you missed the 3rd one on that committee. Had I left you there, you're at 6, or I had to put you on this other committee and you missed 1. So it's 3 + 3 or 3 + 2 + 1. But either way, you're at 6 now because it doesn't matter. you don't have to hit it on those committees. It just has to be cumulative, which is how we should already be doing. So that is why I'm saying this actually isn't changing it.
But if the bylaw revision you're proposing doesn't do that. I agree with you that the previous version does do that. But the current one says only if you're appointed to more than two, like it's a little unclear what happens if your appointments change. Like you should count the one that I was on,
I have a better
and
idea.
now I've changed it.
I have a better idea to speed this along. We have 4. I've only heard issues on number 2. So why don't we table number 2 and just talk on 1, 3, and 4? Would that help for tonight? Or do we think we can tweak 2 right now?
I think we should do 1, 3, and 4, get that out
I-
of the way, and then if we want to tweak
Okay.
2, then we can tweak.
Any issue.
I don't.
We're making a lot of hypothetical, long reach concerns, which I don't see the issue with the count. It's at the end of the day, the trigger isn't the issue, it's the enforcement, which is what we constantly been talking about. We have triggers. Now it's about enforcing the removal of members because of their attendance. How they get there, you know, there's always that argument. I haven't seen that. I don't think that's anything that's gonna be resolved necessarily this evening with the clarity of whether or not there's some sense of corruption or manipulation in the process. It is our job as executives to step up and enforce. So if example given, chair removes whatever committee member because of whatever scenario, that committee member still has a chair. So if that chair is advocating for removal of that board member, that's gonna get to the floor regardless. I mean, again, that's my opinion, but if we wanna table it, then I guess we'd have to go through an entire analysis with city law.
We're doing number 2, right?
Well, let me say
I'm not sure
something,
what's-
because as Jason just spoke, it made me think why, because I'm reading the way I wrote it. Because if you're on 5 committees, it gives you the ability to miss a lot more meetings to get voted off. Because now it's 2/3 of your total, so now you're all of a sudden meeting 30 times in 6 months, which now require, that's why I put that in. It's the 2 committees where you've missed the most meetings. So that, in my opinion, then subjects you, whether you're on 3 committees, 4 committees, 5 committees, to the same thing. So if you're on 2 and we moved you to another one, it's still the 2, that's what I'm thinking.
You're basing it off of the committees of that last part is dealing with someone who's currently on more than 2 committees.
Right.
Right? But we're not really talking about, well, what about the committees you used to be on, or also the committees that used to meet and no longer? So take like an elections committee that meets for a limited period of time and then stops meeting. Any of those absences that occurred when the committee is dissolved, they just don't matter anymore. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's, I think, the really hard part about this. The current says like is a member of all committees of which such member is a member. If you're removed from that committee, you're no longer a member. Shouldn't that attend? Doesn't that mean that attendance doesn't apply anymore because you've been pulled off or the committee stopped meeting? Like that's why this was killing.
So which member was appointed during any 6-month period? So to me, that means, to me, that means even if you were off, you were appointed, and if it falls in that 6-month period, it applies to you, because it doesn't say.
So your new version is right, is bad. I'm saying the old one is that you're off, that you are. a member.
Right.
Now we've changed it to was a member, was
Right.
appointed, so
Right.
you have improvement there. But then I
Thank you.
think this part about the 2 committees with the greatest number of meetings means like, I got moved to a committee now that I was only on it once, but I've been on, this is now my 3rd one I've been on. It's been 5 months, so now it's the other 2, the one I'm still on, the one I was removed from, the new one, isn't in the top 2.
Okay,
It's just hard to put into, I know exactly what you're intending. I mean it. I think I feel like our consensus of that is just how do you actually write that down to cover it?
I hear you. All right, so you know what? I think that one should get tabled. And well, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence, but you wanted to make a motion, Jason? Do you mind just making?
I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, I guess then I'll make the motion I think Jason wanted to make, -1. And I'll read them into the record quickly, but I'm I make them, well, does somebody else want to make it first, out of just the spirit of the chair now?
So we're making a motion on 3 and 4?
Well, the proposed amendments, and we can read them into the record as we should be doing. We're not gonna talk, we're gonna leave 2 alone till we figure that out. So,
I'll make a motion.
but you're gonna have to read
That's fine, I'll
current and then what's proposed, the proposed
Okay.
amendment is.
make a motion.
Derek,
Well, I just have a question. Do we want to at least talk about the change that we emailed?
I can go through it
Just the
quickly.
very last one about that we're talking about the meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the only other, the one change that I suggested and Angel suggested as well after the draft was sent out is to not just have it be remaining until the final roll call, but that the final roll call needs to be completed and the meeting needs to be adjourned.
Yep.
I think
And
that's,
I put that in this.
yeah, it's clear, but it's just not what was sent out.
Right,
That's
yeah,
why I'm saying
got that, yes, you're right, correct. All right, Jose, I believe you want to make a motion.
I do. I can make a motion to accept.
Oh, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. We do have one hand. Xavier, I want to recognize you before we do that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're clear that when it comes to this proposed Article 5, Section C1, that we're going to take in the recommendations that Angel sent around yesterday, correct?
What recommendations are
The
those?
one that he just discussed, but yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I just wanna make
I
sure we're
already-
clear.
I implemented those already. I
Okay,
implemented
so,
Amy's.
when it
And
comes
that's the
to
copy,
like.
I'm sorry, because you might not have it, but that's the copy everyone here has.
Okay, when notifying the chair, like they'll do their best efforts within 24, but it will still, there's still that discretion because emergencies do happen. You know, you're picking up your kid and they get a softball in the face, right? And you got to take them to the ER, make sure they don't have a broken nose. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you're talking about excused absences.
Yes, correct.
Right, so we've changed that to a notice of anticipated absence. So essentially, if you do have your hearing, and you've notified your chair within the 24 hours, when you go for your hearing, the same way those excused absences used to be heard, they will be heard the same way. So whoever that committee is, board oversight, I think it'll be, they have the ability to take that into consideration the way they always have.
We just changed the word.
Well, what we're,
Because it's, what is the excuse? An absence is an absence. Calling it
No,
excuse.
we're not calling excuse anymore. The proposal is notice of, yeah, so, because excuse,
Anticipated
when you're
absence.
excused from something, it means it doesn't count. That's been the whole problem. So it's really just a word change to stop that confusion. Rosa, and then Jose's gonna make them.
Sorry to clarify, but the only thing that would be not ever docked against you would be in the event that you as chair delegate, hey, I need you to go attend PSA 5, and therefore this will not count against you in your total attendance. Correct? Like as an example.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I require a written report on, for you to not be marked absent. If you're just gonna go there and tell us nothing, you will be absent.
Of
Rosa,
course.
and then, Jose make the motion. Then if there's any deliberation, we can also do that once the motion's been made, but I'd like to get it in the record. Rosa?
So with regards to no more excuses, right? God forbid, there's like, well, no, what I wanna know, like, is it an absent still? Or no absent?
Of course it's an absence. It's always been an absence. It's just people don't realize they've been absent. That's all. We're really removing confusion. How many people have said, but I was excused? And they were actually, right, so
Or
that,
I'm still changing the name, it's not gonna make a difference.
Because people, the
But
word
like the
excuse,
brain-
the word excuse means that you.
because then when people won't be able to debate it,
No.
oh, I didn't know. This is to
We
remove,
heard it on Tuesday, someone yelled I was excused.
Right. You're the secretary. You've dealt with this more than anybody. So I'm actually making your life easier and then the people will come after you, hopefully. Jose,
So
go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a motion to accept, amendment 1, 3, and 4, and I will read them now into the record. Amendment 1 to Article 1, Section B1, page I. The current reads as following: members shall attend no less than 2/3 of all meetings of the full board in any 6-month period. The proposed is members shall attend no less than 2/3 of all meetings of the full board in any 6-month period, provided however that all purposes of determining compliance with this requirement, initiating any removal process under section 1B, the only 6-month period that may be examined shall be the 6 most recent completed calendar months in which the full board had a meeting. Number 2 is,
We're not doing two.
my apologies. 3 is addition Article 2, Section B9, current, nothing exists. The proposed is A member shall be eligible to be a candidate for an officer position, notwithstanding that such a member's board appointment may expire before the end of the officer term, provided that such a member is eligible for reappointment by the Manhattan Borough President. A member whose board appointment expires before the end of that officer term and who is not eligible for reappointment by the Borough President shall not be eligible to be a candidate for an officer position. Solve that.
And good luck with this.
All right, thank you. I have to read the whole one completely, right?
Just read it.
Right?
Yep.
All right, amendment to Article 5, Section C1, current Article 5, Section C1, the following are the rules governing attendance and excused absences at board and committee meetings. A, excused absences, a member may be properly excused from a meeting only for the following reasons: military service, jury duty in the event of severe personal issues or severe illness or death in the family or household, an absence of board business as directed by the chairperson, or is necessary to pursue board business with the acknowledgement and approval of the chairperson or committee chairperson as applicable. In the event of travel or work, conference call to the meeting shall be considered an excused absence. Excused absences may be considered due to the due process procedure described in Section 1B, 1B, II, if a member is recommended for removal, clause under Article 1 for the avoidance of any doubt, and excused absence shall constitute an excuse. Excuse a notification, any member who shall be excused from any meeting shall make his or her best efforts to notify the chairperson committee chair 24 hours prior to such anticipated absence. Such notification shall be made in writing. However, notification or excusal does not exempt a member from the provision regarding this meetings. Absence defined for the sole purpose of establishing a record of a member's attendance for evaluation of such attendance. A member shall be considered to have attended a meeting if he or she shall be in attendance during substantially all of the meeting. Substantially all the meeting shall be defined as arriving within 1/2 hour at the beginning of such meeting and remaining until the final vote is taken. Proposed. Article 5, Section C1, the following are the rules governing attendance on the board of committee meetings. A, notice of anticipated absence. A member who expects to miss a full board meeting shall make their best effort to notify the chairperson in writing at least 24 hours prior to such anticipated absence. A member who expects to miss a committee, subcommittee, or task force meeting shall make their best efforts to notify the chairperson of the relevant body in writing at least 24 hours prior to such anticipated absence. B, effective notice. Any missed meeting shall constitute as an absence for attendance purposes. However, if a member is later recommended for removal for cause under Article 1, based in whole for part by attendance, the executive committee for any special committee appointed pursuant to Section 1B, 1B4 may consider whether the member provided advance written notice of the anticipated absence of the reasons for such absence as part of the due process procedure set forth in Section 1B1A. Apologies.
Sorry.
A member's failure to provide such advance written notice may also be considered. Absence defined. So C, for the sole purpose of establishing a record of members' attendance for evaluation of such attendance, a member shall be considered to have attended a meeting only if such member was in attendance during substantially all of the meeting. Substantially all the meeting shall mean arriving within 1/2 hour of the beginning of such meeting and remaining until the final attendance roll call is completing and the meeting is.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Derek. Angel, let's just do a roll call vote on this.
Jose Altamirano,
Yes.
Dan Brija.
Yes.
Rosa Diaz.
Yes.
Joe Jones.
Yes.
Nelson Rama,
Yes.
Asher Rodriguez,
Yes.
Xavier Santiago,
Yes.
Derek Santon,
Yes.
forgot your last name. Jason Villanueva,
No.
the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. For the sake of time, budget request submission form, we won't discuss that this evening, but I mentioned it. Old business, very quickly. Asher, for the Nightingale School, the next conversation with them should be about, giving them some kind of direction that we want, which in part would be connecting them with, organizations, local community organizations that do youth activities and possibly, I could refer, well, it's, educational, so maybe you could stay with you senior activities. They are definitely willing to do a lot more and have discussions, but they are asking us to tell them in a lot of ways to shape that process. And I think it makes sense for your committee, with the people there with the expertise, to start identifying organizations that you guys know to do the work and bring those organizations in, because we don't want to just connect them and be left out of it. So I think in culmination of combining those organizations with them and staying in it and making that introduction, and also you guys having a meaningful discussion on what you think the hours should be, right? So we know it isn't 100. We've made it clear that it's well above 100. I think we should start to have some idea, with the idea now that the summer is not gonna really be used there. There are a lot of hours in the summer. That's not to say we shouldn't have access throughout the school year, but know that there's a lot of hours in the summertime. So I'll let you make a comment, and then I think we have no new business, but we'll just move it on. Okay, so Asher, the only comment, because I talked to you about it, and then Rosa quickly, and then we can go home.
I am willing to like take on that conversation in my committee, but also, and this isn't me, wanna make it clear since I'm not upset about this. But because I wasn't in that initial conversation, I would appreciate if you could give a recap to my committee, because you and Jose were in that conversation, or yes, Russell was there, but I'm saying from leadership, like. For that, just so that way, cause I don't wanna miscommunicate anything else.
That's fine. I can have that conversation with you and first, and then with the committee.
Yeah.
And to the question about, I think, just why Russell was there. Oh, you don't wanna know? Okay.
I don't have, I'm not gonna.
Okay,
harsh-
fine. I just figured, I like to answer whatever, so we have it all out there, but that's fine. Rosa, and then, so that's old business.
Well, if you wanna say it for the record, say it. I just wanna make sure that, I wanna make, cause there was some, I'm not saying anyone here, but some people were trying to say I had some like personal vendetta against it, so I don't.
No, but
But I'm saying, I would like for you to say for the record.
I think you've been totally understanding, and this conversation was not to cut you out of the process or anyone else. They just were adamant about not coming back anymore. They were not, EDC asked them to come to the table, and they told EDC, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So we had no choice but to try to meet with them, simply to build that bridge back to the board. I will say this as well. Me and Angel talked about this. There's this stigma about members not being able to meet outside of a committee meeting. You can't take a board position if we haven't already taken it, but you are allowed to engage with people. Otherwise, how are we able to do anything? So Asher, this hasn't been made clear in the past. You are also welcome to reach out to Nightingale and have had this very same conversation that I did. And you didn't even have to tell me beforehand. The requirement is that when you have that conversation, you report back to the board about it, which is what we did. And the only reason that we did it the way we did it was because we had to make sure it was handled right to get them back to the table, which we did. And Russell was there because Russell does a lot of youth programming, but not always tied to schools, but through organizations where you can link people. And we thought that he could kind of present them with some kind of idea of what it is that we were looking for. Unfortunately, the conversation got more into a lot of what we've been talking about. And then the reason I brought it about maybe it going executive as well is there have been people now that live there with housing concerns. There's transportation concerns that could be an impact. Land use, how there was no need for land use is kind of beyond me, but this touches on a lot of committees. Ideally, they would start to feel better about talking with us, and then they're welcome to go to any committee they want, and you're welcome to continue that dialogue. And I don't have to know, as long as you report back, as long as we're all working towards, I think, the same goal, just to make sure we get as much access to that as possible. So that's it.
Like I said, at full board, yes, I'm saying now I'm willing to discuss like the hours suggestions and stuff like that, but I think just, and this, like I said, I think it's better, I'm agreeing with you, to have it here. Because, and just committee members are always welcome to come here, but I feel like there was certain stuff that was brought up that I couldn't necessarily address in a youth and education meeting. I think it's just better for the future that we keep it here.
And
If possible, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't, especially, I'm trying to focus a little bit more about uplifting the schools in this community and talking about what's actually being done. Not talking about necessarily, I wanna give so much time to someone who isn't, not to be like that, like they weren't open to coming to us in the first place.
yeah, and I just on that note quickly, the reason board oversight was created, in part was also to allow this committee to also focus on the work of the community as opposed to handling all the internal affairs. And as this demonstrates, without stepping on committee's toes, like land use items are always going to land use, housing, but when there is something that may touch on a lot, there might be a point where it just comes here for discussion, because this is where the leadership of all the committees are. So if this thing is relevant on 4 committees, sometimes it's easier to bring them in here. And as always, they all know they're all welcome to come to the meetings, whether you're on this committee or not, and speak to it. All right, so then Angel, and then we're going to new business.
I just wanted to encourage on something. So, with this whole Nightingale thing and this opportunity presented by that project, I've said a couple of times, I think we do have a model with the whole sports time relationship, to jump off from. And I want to encourage you, because the relationship with sport time, to whatever degree has been successful because we came to them with ideas, right? So at that point, it was Francis and David and Hector, who was the youth committee chair back then. Those were the people that were leaned on. So the committees met, yep. But it was those 3 people that came with the ideas. And after sport time left the table, and it was just quiet, sport time had to come back and say, hey, we're ready to go, but we don't have any connections. So it was at that point that then David said, this school, and Hector said, that school, and Francis said, this part. And that's all the stuff that the community is benefiting from now. So to me, in this exercise, we should be relying on you, right? Like you, getting that district committee or whatever, but it's your leadership, right? It's not putting all the onus on you, but hell, if we're all leadership, then we should be respecting each other's leadership. And in this instance, it's all you, buddy. So if you have ideas and you want to wrangle us, then go ahead and wrangle. But it will rise or fall on leadership from your committee. Well, in this instance, it's just youth. So, or seniors was my idea. But very much grab the reins and get creative and wrangle people and kick us where you have to kick us. But we're following you.
And on that note, I forgot to say, because I don't want to let the whole summer go and everything, and have had this meeting and then cut dialogue, I've invited them to either the May or the June executive meeting. Not to put pressure on you. You don't have to have it all done, but if you could come with some ideas, that would be useful, so we could at least show them. It doesn't have to be finalized, but here we are, we're moving towards it, so.
Right, I just want to say, just quick on the record, I would like to have a meeting with all 4 of us and maybe Orlando, because I was able to get a lot of information from the superintendent about which schools are gonna be, because she has a plan for which schools are gonna be summer rising sites for the next few years. And also which schools have a full gym, the dimensions and everything, so I think that's something that we should all discuss.
That's a great idea, we'll do that. All right, Jose, the absolute last old business comment, and then go to the.
I have 10 more
I didn't
things.
know this was gonna be so controversial when trying to write ideas, because the whole point of it was to go and just bring them back. But we did have again, during construction, it'll take a year. They were very open to summer, as we thought, most of our kids are not here for summer, so there's a big gap in summer, 6 weeks or so. So we'll give you that information, and again, I agree with Angel, certain things I handle very well, like public safety, these kind of things.
Yeah,
If you ask me where these schools are, I know what the buildings are, but I don't know more than that, it's just, so we appreciate that expertise.
And here's something I'm gonna be careful I say this, to kind of inspire how much influence we might be able to have in this process. So the consulting firm, as I was told, was, no, don't say that, never mind, drop that, done, new business, thank you.
Okay, so, the positive,
You never have to do that with Xavier.
I did it with Xavier.
on a positive note,
Nice.
unfortunately, we don't have a camera. My luck.
Who would be looking?
Just wanted to announce to everyone that, oh yay.
Bring it closer.
it got blurred out.
Alright, let me change the background.
Let me just say it.
While you're talking.
Just say, in a positive note, yesterday was Earth Day conference, our 5th one for Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee, and obviously the whole board. And Senator Jose Serrano made it his business to actually provide us and honor us with a proclamation. Yay, we feel so honored. This is a win for all of us in Community Board 11, especially Environmental Space and Board.
Well, I think we should frame it and hang it up in the office.
Congrats.
That'll let people know we want more. Okay, that's it for new business. Roll call.
Jose Altamirano.
Present.
Adam Briha.
Present.
Rosa Diaz. Joel Jones. Nelson Rama. Asher Rodriguez.
Present.
Xavier Santiago.
Present.
Derek Stampone.
Present.
Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Can I say one very, very
Of course.
last thing
Go
based on the roll call?
Go ahead.
So thank you guys for letting me call the roll and responding, and the rest of y'all being respectful of each other so that your calls could be heard. At the last full board meeting, I thought it was incredibly disrespectful of Rosa, to Rosa, to be speaking, not Rosa, yeah. When Rosa was trying to call the roll and you could not hear anything, and it wasn't the audio, it was people just talking super, I'm like, it takes 1 minute for her to call it, you know, like give her a break. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. All right, the meeting's adjourned at 8:26 PM. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.